for joining us at True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin Sambois.
We are really, really excited to have, we're always excited here at True
Super
Print.
excited. You know this.
We don't look at opposition as like something to be afraid of. We're always like, there's an opportunity.
In everything.
And so the mindset of, just seeing what we've been watching, I think as a country now with the effects of COVID-19, we've been talking a lot about like just the fog of COVID-19 in business. Is it lifting? Is it not lifting? And so today we are excited to have another co-host with Stephanie Brady here with us as we have this conversation as to like, where do we go from here? It seems that the number of COVID-19 vaccinations is in fact increasing, which is lifting the fog of uncertainty that a lot of us have been living with for more than a year. It gives us a chance to start making some short-term decisions based on a changing rainbow of restrictions. So really wanting to look at the bigger picture here as to now that this fog is semi-lifting, because we still have some things happening around the world as it relates to COVID-19. But what I have started to really notice is, just how the business environment is changing. And it definitely looks different now than it did a year ago. Some companies completely went virtual, giving up their brick and mortar buildings. Some are requiring their employees after working home for 18 months that they have to come back. And so, as business strategists, Maylin and I, that's our jam. That's what we love to do, is to really help our clients and our community really strategize as to what makes sense for them. Mm-hmm. And as we always say, this is our insight based on our expertise, but you have to ultimately figure out what works best for you.
Yes, take the advice, apply what works for you, and the rest, just thank you very much.
Yeah, so today just being able to kind of dive deeper, and I know Stephanie, you yourself, worked in corporate America for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And you decided to really jump on the entrepreneurial journey of deciding you weren't going to go back to work in a corporate environment. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey of making that decision?
So, of course, when the pandemic happened, it was nothing that anybody could prepare themselves for. Mm-hmm. During that period of time, I was working for Maylin, and I just remember the day that they came into my office and they said, Stephanie, pack up your computers, your boxes, and you have to go home. And they were basically, I remember that day like yesterday, because they were sending people home based upon who had children first. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching everybody like pack. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I pull up my phone and I'm looking and I'm like, these numbers are like, I don't know if you guys remember when we found out we had the first case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ohio. Yeah. And I was like, because I remember, I was like, well, okay, it's in California. We see it in Texas.
Yeah.
And then boom.
It came here.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was scary. You know what I'm saying? Because we were like, oh my God, like it's down the street.
Yeah.
So during that time frame, all I could think was, okay, what's going to happen with the kids? You know what I'm saying? Where are we going? Let me go to the grocery store. Let me go get some toilet paper. Let me go get...
She got all the toilet paper.
Let me go get Oakland some diapers and stock up because we're really about to be at home.
Yeah.
And that was a scary time because we really did not know. We're like, are we going to die from this? You know what I'm saying? Like,
so uncertain.
Yeah.
I mean, in our lifetime, I can't think of ever going through anything outside of like 9/11 and things of like, okay, you know what I'm saying? It was tragic, but that was scary. Like to know that people were dying and they brought this over from another country. So anyways, as scary as that time was, as I stated, I was working for Maylin, and I want to say maybe a couple of weeks after that, they started closing everything down. The schools, the daycares, the gyms, the salons. Like it got crazy.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, if I'm going to be at home working for anybody, it need to be myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're not about to control. I'm at home with my children.
Right.
Family first.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're telling me that I'm taking too long to answer these phone calls. Yeah. When I have to go make a bottle. Right. I have to go bathe them. They're crying. I can't even listen at the meetings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was tough, y'all. Like, I just remember saying, like, if I'm going to work this hard to work for somebody else to put money in their pocket.
Right.
I need to be making sure that I'm securing my own financial situation.
Absolutely. And I think you felt like so many people, you know,
Especially moms. I think moms were the ones. I mean, I know fathers felt it because, right, there were some of them were the head of the household, but mothers really felt it because now they have to be a super overtime, working 70 something hours, right? Because when you work from home, you work hard. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to be really 100% on those computers, on the camera. And then you have these kiddos that you have to be a teacher too, because you became a teacher also.
God.
Right?
Yes.
I'm like, thank you for calling Maylin. My name is Stephanie. Hold on. I'm sorry. Be quiet.
Yes.
Oh my God. Raymond, go get her diaper.
Oh
What is
my
wrong? I'm like, sorry about that. Back to what we were saying. And then I would have, Mommy. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry. It's her nap time. Uncle, come here. Oh my God. My work schedule did not align to being my mommy's schedule. Like, it just did not make sense. And I mean, automatically I'm on defense because I'm saying here, like, my boss is calling me separately, like, Stephanie, I don't know what's going on. You do know what's going on. Like, you know what I'm saying? What do you mean?
Right.
And so...
Because where will the kids go? Because your parents that are older cannot take care of them because they're like the most vulnerable population.
Exactly. And I just remember I remember our community coming together, and we were like, where I was living at the time, we were saying like, okay, if you see a pack of toilet paper, pick it up. Well, and if I see whatever, I'll pick it up. If you get a gallon of water, I just remember us working together, and we would just drop stuff off on the doorsteps. I don't know if y'all remember that. Like, it was really like,
it was real.
Yeah.
Tough. So, anyways, I just say that to say that I was working and busting my butt.
Yeah.
For, you know what I'm saying? During that time, they wasn't giving no raises.
Right.
They wasn't saying, okay, I'll take that back. They did do like a COVID or a pandemic bonus for those that was working. I think it was like 1,000. They taxed it to 600. You're not really showing me anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like, I mean, yes, I took the money, but at the same time, it was just like, I'm busting my butt to get up in the morning to have to log into these calls. But also I'm sitting here making oatmeal as I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Walking around the house. Like, it was so... It was just a tough time that I just couldn't imagine clocking in for them 8 to 9 hours to make. I mean, I'm not no offense to anybody that does this, but it just wasn't enough for me. You know what I'm saying? And that was a time where if you wasn't figuring out what you was gonna do with your life, I don't know what you was doing.
Right.
Exactly.
Because you had too much time. There was nowhere for you to go but be home.
Yeah.
But sometimes also that's kind of like. So you had an approach, right? Because you had to go into like, I need to figure this out for me and my kids. Where some people at that time went into like, what in the world? My life is over.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm stuck with this. I have to do this and I have to. And a lot of people almost lost their mind. Yeah. Because a lot of time also, that's why Netflix probably like made so much money because we were like, I'm going to watch everything, which was different ways, right?
Funny,
you could go into
true.
I'm going to watch other shows and not ways, but really like almost like in denial of what's happening outside in the world. And I'm just going to go in here.
Exactly.
And then other people are like, yeah, no, like this is the time where I need to figure out my life and really create my future because no company is promised.
Right.
If we learn anything, you could work there for 20 years and they're like, well, thank you so much. Here's your pink slip.
Yeah.
And then what happened if you don't have a next plan? So when you were making this decision of, I can't do this because it was just too much mentally. What steps did you take? Did you pray? Did you write in the journal? Did you figure out like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z? It's just safe for me to do this because I have kids, right? Some people with children is harder, I think, to make a decision like that than some that don't because then you have 3 mouths waiting on you, especially a baby, right? Yeah. So what steps did you take to make this decision?
So I remember, and this was another thing that I was dealing with, my mental health was failing because of the simple fact, like, and I don't think I was alone in that. Where I was contacting my doctor, like my anxiety is out the roof.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to sleep most days. Like I was just constantly, my mind would just keep going and keep going. My doctors were trying to put me on all type of medicine, but I feel like it was a time for anybody that was going through some tough times for them to just, you know what I'm saying, their mental health was suffering. But I would take those times at night when I couldn't sleep and I would just take notes. I would do a lot of research. Those quiet moments of being a mom was my go, like my like hunger where I fed it.
So. And it's so true because nighttime is my time too at home. I try to get up early in the morning, Lord knows. But that just never seemed to really work for me. But nighttime, like you said, like when the kids were sleeping, just being able to sit there and be like, what am I going to do? And even I am an entrepreneur. God willing, I've been an entrepreneur almost 9 years.
9 years, yeah.
And
beautiful.
It was, you know, regardless if you were working in corporate America or even as an entrepreneur, it was, to your point, just a very scary and heavy time that we're still not even out the woods of yet, because we're seeing, you know, now a Delta variant that's circulating, you know, still a lot of different things that are going on in the schools now. So even though we have that piece where the kids are now back in school, if you
Some type of normalcy.
you know, if you chose to send them back or what have you, you know, we're still dealing with so many, you know, kind of aftermath of the kids being home with you for so long, then having to send them back, knowing we're still dealing with so much with this Delta and with the COVID-19. So to your point, I think it's just the mental health for the world. I feel like right now, you know, everybody is kind of running on empty a little bit, running on like, we still have not recovered from what we just went through, what our kids just went through.
And was it has it been 2 years?
Not yet.
Almost.
Not yet.
It was 2020.
2020.
Yeah. So it'll be, I think, 2 years in March.
It
March
feels like
or April.
to me.
It does,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yes.
No, yeah. It still feels every day like it started, but it's been for a while.
Because when they shut the schools down, to be honest, I thought it was like going to be for a couple of weeks. I was like, okay, cool. I got
She was like, oh, let's have, let me make
I'm
breakfast.
over there making breakfast.
Yeah.
You
You guys want to watch a movie?
Yeah.
I'll pop some popcorn.
Yeah.
We gonna stay. Like, it was like, and then after like 2
You
weeks,
thought it was
you're
a
like,
vacation.
I was like, you're not
oh,
going back
heck,
to
they not.
Yeah.
Mom, can we have popcorn? No. Sit down.
They said that
The honeymoon
wine
was over quick.
They said that wine sales, alcohol sales this past year, they said they've made the most money on Netflix
In their whole
alcohol
life.
sales.
I remember
We should have had a wine company. If
should
If I
have.
could go back, I would have invested in Zoom, Netflix,
Yes.
and a couple
Hulu.
wineries. Because,
I wonder where the maybe
And the
came from.
internet. We have
Listen.
invested in the internet.
man, I
It's not
missed
too
the
late,
boat
guys.
on
It was
that.
nothing else to do. I remember going to Kroger, and I'm like, the liquor store line was like, it's like, might as well
Is that
get
for
my
food? Is that for
Let me
food?
step on in.
Let me get on in this line because
I mean, it was
a lot.
But it was like
real.
coping though. People and I said, right? You had a couple of choices of how you handle this. Did you went into like, this is an opportunity for me to start my business?
Yeah.
Because I could be like, oh, I was what's it, furlough? Like
Furloughed,
some
yeah.
people were furloughed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like, well, we'll see. We bring you back.
Yeah.
Don't go nowhere though. And I'm like, actually, I have to go somewhere. I have my children,
Yeah,
right? My
sure.
house.
Yeah.
And then some people were like, actually, I'm just going to drink and watch Netflix because this is an opportunity. This is a time for me to just relax and avoid the world. And I'm not saying that it was wrong or right for anybody. You had to do what was right for you to survive this.
That is true.
But now we're coming out of this.
That is
kind
true.
of.
Kind of.
And we need to figure out what's next, right? Because
Hopefully.
you can be today, next year, you cannot be where you are right now, right? So like life is not over. If you're still breathing, if you're still alive, you still have an opportunity to make something. And you decided, as struggling as it was, right? And hard as it was to move forward.
Most definitely. I felt so, I mean, yeah, I felt like everybody was stuck in that fog, right? We were like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? But once I got out of that fog, and I'm not going to tell you how it was like the next day, it probably was like a couple of months later, like, oh my God, Stephanie. That's when I started strategizing. I started, putting my thoughts on paper. Like, so one of my passions, which has always been, and Christina can tell you, is the beauty industry. Like,
Because you're beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, even as a little girl, I could imagine owning my storefront. You know what I mean? And all of those dreams that I feel like I lost when I became a mom. I became into the corporate world, and I'm sitting here doing things that I really don't want to do. You know what I mean? Like, this is just not me. So I was like, well, this is the time. You know what I'm saying? If I really want to do it, and I didn't feel like I had anything to lose, because I feel like at that point, like I was just like at the lowest of the lowest. Like, this is my time. So I went ahead and started up that business plan. And at the time, which people didn't know, we were talking about the PPP plan and like humor, but it was so many resources that people did not know of, you know what I'm saying? And I just started researching and just started figuring out, like, because obviously I was a new business owner, what I could take advantage of.
Well, some communities didn't know about it, actually. Let's just say that.
Yeah, just say
some
communities.
did not know of the resources available for them when they were like, entrepreneurs or businesses, right? Other people knew.
Other people didn't, right.
If you had like accountants and if you had a team, then you knew. Like if you knew accountants and lawyers, you probably knew. But if you are out here with your business and you don't have, that type of connection or guidance, because there's people still today that have no idea.
Don't know.
I'm like, sweetie, you've been in business for 10 years.
And you don't know. And I'm sure even as you guys being entrepreneurs, you're still learning. And you know what I'm saying? And that's where I feel as the key is. I feel like I just literally had a dream, no money. I had this raggedy notebook that I still go back to and look at. Well, all of these plans and all of these steps that I wanted to do. And that's all I had. You know what I'm saying? Outside of taking my financials and taking care of my family, I knew that eventually from point A, I was going to be at B. I didn't know when
or how.
But in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
So seeing the footsteps now, even going through this pandemic, and I just told y'all, I don't know how I got there, but I did. And it's just beautiful. I give myself time frames. It might not be realistic, you know what I'm saying? And I know y'all can relate, but it helps me. Even if I'm not there, I'll be close to being there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And giving yourself, like you said, like when you get it on paper, because
there's power in that.
There's power in that. And that's part of like with our strategy. Maylin and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. We work with, just women in leadership in general. And we always tell people it starts with the goal. Like you have to create the goal and even, take it a step further, that vision statement, okay, you want to be in the beauty industry. Okay. So what does that look like for you? And it is, and figuring out, is that a storefront? Is that a e-commerce building or business? Is that, partnering with other brands and doing promotions? So clearly defining what is your goal and what is your vision statement for how you want to go about achieving that goal? Yes. So for you, that was really kind of like your starting point.
Just take them, because we all are individuals and we all have our own creativity. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I look at things like, okay, well, that's already, somebody's already doing that, but they're not you.
They're
you know
not
what I'm saying?
you.
The uniqueness of you is powerful in itself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What I'm going to bring to the table, she's probably already doing that, but she's not me. And how she deliver it is not going to be how I'm going to deliver it.
Right.
So I'm not going to lie, coming into this field, you do get a little discouraged or you're like, okay, am I really going to make it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know what I want, but is it really going to work? You know what I'm saying? Like those type of things. But taking them negative thoughts and replacing it with the positive energy has helped me.
And affirmations. Like if we thought that one coffee company was enough, there'll be no Starbucks.
Right.
There'll be no Dunkin' Donuts, no Bustelo. You know what I mean? Like no Santo Domingo coffee.
Man.
So I always remember that because I used to live in New York and I literally worked at a mental health facility as a counselor, and I literally was in a corner, and every corner that I looked out the window, every corner had a Starbucks, and they had a line, and it was down the street, and I was like, and I don't know, like, I wasn't an entrepreneur, I didn't know, I was like, that's weird, like they all want the same coffee, and then you go down the line to Dunkin' Donuts, the same thing, and then I didn't understand what that was now, which all the research and the things that we know is like you can have multiple business about the same product, but it's you. And also, one company cannot serve the whole world. And I just want people to get that. There's motivational speakers out there. There are books. There's so many things. There's products. But really, some products I'm allergic to. So I personally cannot use that. Okay. But I can use somebody else's products, right? And that is the same thing for your business. Yeah. Right. You're not going to be able to help the billions of people in the world, right? But you can help 1% of that. Right? Like and that's enough for your business. Like and then you can grow that. So I actually follow this girl on Instagram. Her name is Ele. And during the pandemic, like she went through a divorce. She made her first $1 million. And all it was her with her first check that she got, right? Like she took that invested, research, and now she's an entrepreneur. She gives business advice, and she made $1 million during the pandemic, right? So there are opportunities to do best. So don't let the doubting limitations tell you because Maylin is doing it, Christina is doing it, I shouldn't do it. No, come on. We need to help more people. Come on.
I mean, there's billions of people on this earth. And, like Maylin mentioned, we cannot possibly serve every single person.
We can.
And the morning of after you won, Tina, I was listening to you because I was driving. This is after my silly mishap that I told you about. So you said, I won, but I want y'all to know that you can too.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I want to help you get there because it's a lot of people that don't think that they can be in that position.
Yeah.
And that was a deep, really comment that you had made because a lot of people get in these spaces and they're like, oh, well, she did it. And they don't know, you work hard to get there, but you can do it too.
Absolutely.
And just those motivational words means everything. You know what I'm saying? Because if I could have started what I'm doing years ago, who knows where I would be right now.
Yeah.
But not everybody have somebody telling them that you can do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That you're going to win. Let me help you. Come on. You know what I'm saying? So that means a lot.
And having intentional about that. And I think that, that's something that we don't see a lot of, like other, unfortunately, like women supporting other women, especially in the business space or even in corporate America. You look at, because there's so low representation of women in Fortune 500 companies, CEOs of those companies, women in politics, women billionaires. Like if we just look at like just the data, and I think a lot of it is because there's this like, oh, like I fought to get here. You won't have to figure it out on your own.
On your own.
Yeah.
And you have to pay your dues. What dues?
Like, don't act like you weren't just sitting next to me. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like we came from the same place and now you want to act like you know what I'm saying, too big to show me?
Exactly. Because and I think there's power in being confident enough in your lane to say, listen, like you mentioned earlier, like there are other beauty brands, but nobody is Stephanie Brady. Nobody's gonna do what you're gonna do. Just like nobody, yes, they can have a beauty brand, but there's certain flavor that I think every individual brings to their corporations, to their businesses, to their brands. And so I think that kind of goes into like the step 2 of like this process of growth and strategizing is really looking at the reality of what you bring to the table. Yeah. Like once you identify your goal, like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my vision statement as to my why, right? Because there has to be a why, and it can't just be about money. Yeah. For you, it sounds like it was about the freedom and the flexibility to be with your family, still create a living, but be authentic and, true to who you are and what you feel like your calling is in life. But then really looking at the reality of, okay, what exactly do I bring to the table?
What's my value? How do I bring value to the world?
Exactly.
Right? What do I have to contribute? Because and not like, oh my God, I have nothing. No, like what do you know? Right? Because you know what you know.
Yeah.
You've been preparing how old you are. I'm 39. So for 39 years, I've been preparing for this moment. Right? Like every experience, everything has prepared me for this. And I have acquired tools and things that only I have experienced because it was my experience.
It's your experience.
Right. So you have the same. Right? Yeah. So Christina has a lot of experience.
Yeah. No, I think we all do. Yeah. And we don't look at like the things that we've gone through. I don't believe that we don't often sit back and reflect on like, man, I went through all this, but like, look what I learned that we can utilize those downtimes as inspiration, as driving forces. We often look at it like, oh, this happened to me. This is really hard. And it's like, yes, this happened to me.
And it was hard.
It was hard. It sucked. I cried.
Let's be clear, right?
But there's a power in that if you shift your mindset, because you talked about mindset briefly, that you had to come to yourself and say that, no, Stephanie, if this is what I want to do, it's really about the mindset of saying like, yes, this happened to me. However, I'm not going to let it dictate how I choose to show up, how I choose to lead, how I choose to, to do business. So I think that getting to a place of really tapping into who you are, what you bring to the table, how you show up to the world every day, or at least how you want to, because if that's not how you're showing up, then this is an opportunity for you to reset and reevaluate, because nothing is permanent. No. Everything is circumstantial, everything is temporary, but we have to be willing to acknowledge, like, okay, this is not working for me. Working for a corporation that was having you doing calls, being home with the kids, it was affecting you so much so that your mental health, you weren't sleeping.
And not understanding.
The kids are like, what's wrong with mommy?
So they don't even be 100% for Maylin.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not even being 100% for Stephanie. What makes you think I'm gonna show up the next day and be 100% for Maylin? You know what I'm saying? Like, and even I was having this conversation with my mom the other day. So going back to just the flexibility of having your own and then being involved as being a mother and everything like that. So Case, my middle child, he just started kindergarten, right? Case goes to a separate school from Rainier because they had an overflow in kindergarten in Westerville this year. But I got a phone call from Case's school stating that Case was coughing. Okay. And I just want to put this is daily stuff that I go through. Case is coughing, and it's a combination of a fever. And she called me. She was like, I just want to let you know that you need to come get Case and go take him to get a COVID test. She was like, because these are combinations of the COVID symptoms, right? So I'm like, well, he was coughing last night. I was like, no problem. I'll come get him. What's his fever? She was like, oh, it's 99.1. I'm like, oh, it's, a little high, but that's normal. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's nothing abnormal. I was like, well, you can't really put that on there as a combination of COVID. With these schools and this COVID stuff right now, the exposure, I can take Case to Kroger and he walked past somebody who sniffled on their shirt. That's exposure. Yeah. But at this point, it's so hard. So she's like, come get Case. I'm like, all right, fine. I call their dad. I'm like, I'm going to go get Case. She calls me back and she's like, oh, yeah. And I checked and he has siblings. So you need to go pick up your other child, too.
Yes, they do that.
So I'm like, right. And I get that because they're in the same household on paper. Now, at this point, it's Monday morning while I'm talking to her. Rainier and Case haven't been together since Thursday because they both co-parent from their dad's house separately. Yeah. And I'm like, so you want me to take Rainier out for 14 days as well? And they haven't even been together in the last 4 days. That does not, you know what I'm saying? In their mind, they see two kids from one household. Yeah. And if Case does have COVID, and then Rainier's taking it over to his other school, now we got, you know what I'm saying? So when I say this to say, you got all of this going on in the world right now. Right. You think Maylin would have supported that? Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I got to go. Yeah. You know, it's just the little stuff like that I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, and it makes sense. And I think it's, everybody has their own different driving force as to why they make the decisions they make. And I think COVID-19, it added a lot of pressure to people to evaluate the priorities in their life, evaluate family, evaluate, am I with a corporation that values me as an individual? As an individual. And I think some companies, They do. They're family. I've seen online through social media companies that really rallied.
Yeah. And we have worked with some too.
Yeah, we've worked with people who they're like, listen, you go home, get your work done as you can. Awesome. Like, we'll support you.
Take care of your family.
Take care of your family. Because I think it really changed the status quo for corporate America to say, and this was an opportunity that unfortunately I feel like a lot of corporations failed. Yes. Where it's bigger than you just as a number. And they had an opportunity to really, you hear about diversity and inclusion, you hear about leadership, you hear about all these buzzwords that they like to use. And then when it came down to the wire, the wire came down to, you're at home, you got a baby on your lap, you got a kid you got to go pick up from school, 2 kids you have to pick up from school, and
really care about
calling me like, hey, what's going on with your call volume? Like, what's happening? What are you doing? Then that told you right then and there, like, this is not going to work for where I am right now. But also, I think sometimes it's that push, because you probably already knew that this was not. But you do what you have to do because you have children and a lot of frontline people who had to work during the pandemic. So you see so many people who didn't get an opportunity to stay home with their families. Nurses had to show up every day.
They risked their whole life.
Police officers still had to show up every day. I mean, there were so many people who were like, I don't get the liberty of staying home. Like,
and they had families too.
And they had families too. Yeah. And so just thinking about all those people who never really had the opportunity to, just to be home with their family. So we often talk about like just looking at why changing the mindset of like, why is this happening to me instead of like, this is happening for me.
Yeah, I like that.
And so like you being home with your kids and having all of these things happen, that was a driving force for, what, Steph, if I'm ever going to do this, if I'm ever really going to take the leap and start my business, this was the motivation and that timing that you had to go through to create that push to start your business and to figure it out. And I think, not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur, and we tell people
that's
that.
Okay.
And that's okay.
Guys, that's okay. I promise.
It's totally fine. Because I think social media gives a lot of misconception about, you got to have multiple hustles. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're not
you're wasting your time.
You're not. No. There are some people,
crazy
like my husband, for example, like Doc is always going to be the type of person, he's going to work for a corporation. That is what
But he's an incredible employee though, right?
Like, he's an exceptional employee. Okay. And so I feel like even what we're talking about today, this can apply to how you show up for your corporation, really identifying what is your goal for that company? What is your goal for your life? Figuring out like, how do you create strategies that are going to make you a better employee, going to make you a better leader? Right. So it's not with the message of like, everybody should just quit their jobs because COVID is hard and go start a business, because having a business, ladies and gentlemen,
it is not easy.
It's equally harder, because
I believe it.
We work just as much as somebody that works that owns, is working
sometimes
for somebody.
Double.
Yeah. Because we have people we have to pay.
Yes.
We have lives that also
depend on us.
On us. And so entrepreneurship is also not for the faint of heart.
No. And it's not to do it. So I think like, don't listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, right? Like if you go to the Small Business Development Center, I used to be a director there. And one of the things that we used to do is teach this business class. It's 3 series. Now I think it's 2. And really the intention of the class was to give you some information, but to really give you the real. Because once you took that class, some people walked out of there like, actually, I'm pretty cool at my job. So I'm just going to do this I'm not going to do this. And that was okay. There was no stigma to that, right? And some people were like, actually, it's hard, but I could do it. And the reason why is because many people I remember a client came in and he's like, yeah, I just want to work like 5 hours a week. I said, I'm sorry? He's like, yeah, I just want to do my business and support myself and make exactly what I was making on my job and work 5 hours a week. I said, yeah, but let's revisit that statement, because it's not how it's going to happen. Not in the beginning. Later on, when you have staff and you have grown.
Create leverage.
Great, but not in the beginning. In the beginning, you are working sometimes double hard
around the clock
for yourself, right? To build, which as you know, as an entrepreneur. So we're not saying don't jump on it, don't do it, but have a plan. Like before if you decide
realistic plan.
Yeah, this is what I want.
Like, because I just feel like even with me planning out my journey, sometimes I'm just like, okay, Stephanie, like, what was you thinking last minute? Like, okay, like, come on now. But at the same time, like, and even with you guys, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot, and you guys were way in business before the pandemic. So I feel like people like you and Maylin, like y'all literally were in position to kind of already be focused on what needed to be done during that pandemic. Whereas, somebody new like me, or somebody just starting right before the pandemic, or even starting in the pandemic, they don't know what that looks like. You know what I'm saying? With you guys, and which is awesome. And I'm proud of you guys, because you guys been, you know what I'm saying? And I know it wasn't easy. And I know, from the front line up until now, things have changed dramatically. But I feel like you guys were ready when it did happen. And so I commend you guys. I'm proud of you guys.
Thank you.
I tell Tina all the time, because a lot of women and just younger women are looking up to you guys, because, you know what I'm saying, they want to be there. But, as long as you guys are giving the steps and like push and motivation, because I'm motivated, you know what I'm saying, even though my line of business is completely different, but just the fact of knowing that you can make it. So
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that, because, I think Maylin and I, from the beginning of this journey, we wanted to be very intentional about sharing like the good and the bad, because, I think we've heard this on other episodes where it's like you only show the good on social media sometimes.
Yeah.
And, you know, you know how on Facebook you get reminders of posts from like 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I look at some of these posts from like 5, 6 years ago. I was like, dang, I must have been going through it. It was a hard day that day. Where I'm like posting like, God, give me strength because this person is going to take me there, because it is a growth process. And I think you have to have patience with yourself in this journey, whether, you know, you're in corporate America, or if you're not, even if you're just a mom or a parent that's raising kids, that's 5 jobs in itself. By the way, don't feel like you got to do more, because that's a never ending job in itself.
You have a full-time right there.
Yeah, that's a full-time job. But just really, you know, kind of going back to what we were talking about, like look at like what is your goal for your life? Really looking at, you know, what's the reality of what I want to achieve here? You know, because I think there's also about progression. Like, you know, in my mind, I've always kind of wanted this, and I'm ready to go to 12 steps. And Maylin's always been like, but we got to get through 1 through 5 first. So you always need people in your corner who are also going to be real with you about the reality of like, okay, this is a great dream. I think you can have the best beauty brand in the world. But how do we start that? How do we start creating? And what are our options, right? So if we want to just quantify this, we're talking about goals / your vision statement for, you know, your business or you as an individual, and then looking at the reality, like really what is it that I want to do, and fully understand and wrap my mind around that. And then looking at the options, looking at, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to go about it, and how am I going to get there? So looking at the solutions, who do you need in your corner to help make that happen? You know, what classes, what information do I need? You know, so when you started researching like this beauty industry, which is $1 billion industry, I mean, there's obviously a lot of opportunity within that. But, you know, that can be overwhelming in itself. That's a whole lot. Like you have to condense, okay, what is my lane? And where can I at least start? Like, do not overcomplicate, because I think sometimes we overcomplicate things where we feel like we got to have all this stuff. We got to have this perfect thing. And it's like, well, let's just test the waters. Let's just see, because we've done rebranding several times, you know, because in the beginning we thought one thing, and by year 3 we were like, actually, we don't like that no more. And so just giving yourself grace and time to really look at all of your options. Don't be in such a rush to get to the finish line where you overlook the entire process of the journey. And then once you feel like you kind of have identified the goal, the vision, you know, the steps you need to take there, then you can move onward with figuring out like, how do we continue to build upon what we have? So I feel like even just in our entrepreneurial journey, we're kind of in that phase right now where we've spent the past almost 10 years really looking at what is the goal, what is the vision,
and serving.
Yeah, because you have to serve other people in the process. Like, we could have instantly came in the game, which we didn't think about this in the beginning. It was truly just about serving, which it still is. But in that realm of just the creative process, we're like, we really enjoyed this. We really like this. People really enjoyed this. How do we build upon that? And so understanding that this is literally like a puzzle piece. Like you got to start somewhere and give yourself time to build that up and understand it's a journey. It's not going to be overnight. I mean, we are still in this COVID world. We're still trying to manage so many things. So I guess I really just want our listeners to understand that it's not easy, but it is possible.
It is possible. And you can do it.
You can do it. And TD Jakes, he said something very powerful the other day. I was listening to his podcast. Shout out to TD Jakes. You know, if you ever hear
we love
this,
him.
We
Tell
love
him
so much.
Thank you.
But he said, you know, if you look at things as a problem, they're a problem. He said if people need to shift their mindset into understanding that in opposition, there's always opportunity. So even in the opposition of COVID-19, there was so much opportunity. There were resources. There was funding. You could work from home, or you could be doing 2 businesses at the same time. So it's all about your perspective
and how you look at it.
Yeah, and we always look at what is the opportunity here. Because things, you know, are always going to happen in your life that sometimes shake you, or this is not what you planned for. So what is the opportunity for that, right? So as you are building this foundation for your business, because you are, and then now you're going to add pieces to it, and they're awesome surprises you're going to give us one day where we're looking forward to kind of follow you on this journey. So if you are following Stephanie, please follow her on IG. We're gonna put that information in the episode, because I think people should follow your journey. They should see like where you are, how you got there, and where you're going, and what you're about to reveal to us later. I think it would be really exciting for us.
Yeah, and I'm excited as well. Yeah, so follow me on IG, Steph.Blue, because where I'm at right now is definitely not where I'm going to be at within a year or even 6 months, and I'm putting that in the air.
Absolutely.
But like I feel like I can't wait to discuss my journey. Like I'm in it right now, but I can't wait to talk about it. Like, man, that pandemic, let me tell you the steps, because I feel like I'm still in it, but it's just the fact that I can't wait to discuss what I had to go through. So
and where you're going. So the power of manifestation for us, whether you are an entrepreneur, an employee, an employer, whatever it is, manifesting what you want out of life is so important. It's almost like dreaming. Like kids dream, and when you're little, you dream, and you're like, right, you talk about your dreams when you were little, and those things are manifesting right now because you really thought about it, you dream about it, you couldn't stop about it. So what happens in that, and there's energy, it's been research, it's proven, when you start thinking about the things you want, I mean, everything, and people call it the universe, I call it God, conspires to make it happen for you. We always say, do your part, and God will do his. So if you think about, you have done your part, you have, done the research, you are getting ready, then that's why the things are happening. So if you're in a job and you're like, I don't know what to do, find a mentor, right? Like reach out to us. We'll be happy to either give you an answer if we have it, or connect you to a resource, because many people right now are a little lost, and that's okay. That's why this podcast exists.
Right.
We thought about how can we reach out to people, because we can't answer every question.
Yeah.
Right. We can't give everything to one individual at a time. So we decided the podcast was the best way to support as many people as possible. To help them find an answer, the next step. Right. So if you are right now like, how do I get promoted? Or now this coming out of the fog, right? So let's talk about it a little bit. You're coming out of the fog. People are asking you to come back to work, and you're like, what? I love working in my pajamas. I don't even know what to do with this, right? Like traveling, driving. Right. I see traffic now. I'm so confused. I'm like, what is that traffic? Right? So you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. Absolutely. So advocating for yourself. So your employer told you, right? Go home and work 5 days a week from home because we need you to work, and this is what has to happen, right?
Yeah.
Now they're like, come back 5 days a week. Actually, that might not work for me. Maybe I want to work from home Mondays and Fridays because the first 3, those middle days I can come in. But that Monday and Friday works really good for me to be home. Like they gave you what they needed and you comply. And now as you're coming back, I'm sure because you're a great employee, you're like, I want to do this, but I also need this to work for me.
Absolutely.
Right?
Speak up for what you want. And because I think there's power in that. And if you're a good employee and you really go hard for your employer, so that's something you need to ask yourself.
Yeah, am I a good employee?
Don't go to your employer demanding 20,000 things and you don't never show up.
You're never on camera.
Now you have to be mindful of that, because one of our employees, she just sent us an email with some things she wants.
But let me tell you, though.
But let me tell you, we looked at that list and we just texted each other with it. And it was, I was like, she deserves
every single thing she said.
Everything she asked for, because in our minds, she's worth that. And I was so proud of her, because I know it took a lot of guts, because if you know her, you know that it wasn't easy for her to even draft that. So I can imagine her being like, do I send it? Do I not send it?
Is this too much?
Am I in trouble?
Am I doing too much? But when I saw it, I smiled, because in that moment, I knew we've been doing our job.
We did our job.
And telling, we can't just go out into the world and talk about equity and talk about empowerment and talk about, and then we're not going to be mindful or consider that with our own team and our own staff. So when she sent the email, I just instantly, I texted Maylin. I was like, yo, she deserves everything she asked for. If we can make it happen, we need to make it happen. And I think that's what it's about. So
good for her.
Have the power to go to your employer. If you're a good employee, if you're a valued employee, they should be able to work with you. And if they can't, then that might be another opportunity for you to say, okay, what is my goal here?
What now? Yes. And if you're not a good employee, though, like, get there. I'm not just kidding. But if you're not, right, like, have that conversation with your manager. Like, what else can I do to be, to be more valuable to the company? Because, just by doing your job well, so many opportunities come to you, right?
Exactly. Just doing the right thing.
Yeah. And employers want you to say, let me tell you, we've been looking at how many people are hiring. And it's really difficult for employers to hire good people right now. So they will people work with you, but if you're not a good employee, this is a perfect time for them to get rid of you.
Yeah.
So let's be clear.
We're downsizing, and unfortunately, we all gotta go.
We have no room to pay you.
Yeah.
Right. And they
just to
need
be a body.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
Don't go just taking up space. Like,
No.
you have to go in there and do the right things. And if you don't feel inspired to do that, that's probably not the corporation
not
for you.
Yeah.
So in wrapping up, I know Steph mentioned earlier just the importance of mental health. And, I think it's truly, truly important to be intentional, regardless what you plan to do as you're coming out of this fog of COVID-19. And like I said, even though we're still in, the fog of COVID-19, there has been some movement within corporate America and within entrepreneurship in the business realm as a whole. So we just wanted to share a list of tips that we found that were helpful in how to improve your mental health.
Yeah, so some of them are get enough sleep,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to your feelings, spend time in nature, pursue a hobby, laugh often, which I love that one, grieve your losses, so face kind of where you are, right? Take a moment to reflect on that. Accept yourself and imperfections and all of it, all who you are. Accept yourself. Only try to change yourself, not others. There's no way to change others. Let me repeat that.
Yeah.
No way. You can only change yourself, and if they want to change, they'll do it. Ask for help when you need it. That is so important.
So important.
Spend less time with electronics.
Yeah, get off of Instagram.
Yes. I mean, just set a time limit because if you have a business, though, you kind of need to go in.
I mean, you can listen to True Print for Life, but
Yes.
everything else.
And I'll be right there watching if you're tagging us. So yes, I actually set a time limit for my social media because you can get on especially when you're an entrepreneur, like you go in to check yourself and then before you know you're like at 3,000 reels. So I set a limit and sometimes that limit is reached by 9 a.m., which is really difficult.
Wow.
But we're working on it. Yeah. I only set an hour limit. Okay. And the next one is connect with families and friends. Don't act on obligation. So if there's something that you don't want to do, really consider if you have to do this because you want to do it or because you feel obligated to do it because you're people pleasing. Express yourself. Forgive yourself. You're not perfect.
Yeah.
Have grace. We always talk about having grace. It's one of the things we mention a lot. Forgive yourself. Every new moment is an opportunity to move forward. And once you know better, you do better. So forgive yourself. See a therapist. I see one once a month. I love her. Even when I'm happy, I see her. When I'm sad, I see her. That is just part of my mental health for myself. Just like I go to the doctor once a year when I feel perfectly fine. So don't let the stigma stop you. Seek a therapist. Practice deep, calming breathing. Actually, it's so crazy. Like, we don't breathe enough. I don't know why or how, but like this whole normal thing, there's like, you could be feeling like really stressed out. Take a moment to pause, put your hand in your heart and the other hand in your belly and just like take a couple deep breaths. And then you'll see how the anxiety automatically like starts leaving, right?
Yeah.
So if you're feeling like that at any point during the day, less than 30 seconds and you can find some calmness by just breathing. And then of course, spend time alone, just with your thoughts, away from social media and electronics and Netflix.
Yeah.
And just spend time to reflect on, or even finding gratitude. Like in those days, we daily tell each other like, oh, I'm grateful for this. So we Christina and I text each other like, I'm grateful for this, or I'm grateful for you, or because being in gratitude really brings more things to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, so I hope this conversation was helpful. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us. We're always really excited to hear from people like you who are just out here. You're doing it, you're being intentional, and we're very proud of you as well. We're excited to see your new business venture.
Yes.
We'll have to bring you back to talk after you launch your new business venture. And so, as we always say here at True Print for Life, regardless of what's happening, know that you have support. Know that support is around the corner. Even if that's just checking in on our podcast, feel free to send us a message. Let us know, if there's a topic you want us to further discuss or how we can further support. But in the interim, remember, it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.